flowing through the air. The pain I felt is paid for, all is said and done. Oh, I am restricted, fixed upon the web. I need to kick the habit that my mind is breathing in. Break out, I've got to see. Spent all my life holding all of it closely. I played it innocent, a feel of discontent. I'm finally facing it all, fearless. Burning the bridge that keeps us. I'm here and I'm feeling exaggerated, that's what you assume. The story's over now, I must conclude. I am conflicted, watching where I step still, hanging in the balance. Not the life I want to live, I want to take it all. Standing tall, fear I've weighed the person you are. Oh, break out, I've got to see. Spent all my life holding all of it closely. I played it innocent, a feel of discontent. I'm finally facing it all, fearless.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to the Golden Show here on the Blue Podcast for a brand new episode. Let's just say we did record an episode, but due to technical difficulties, it actually never went live on YouTube. So this is our second attempt of giving you a Golden Show. So you're going to get two this week. You're going to get one which is which will be uploaded on the Wednesday, and then one on the Friday. Bear no goes to plan. So. I welcome George for co-host to the episode that is going to go up on YouTube. So George, are you ready to try again?
Yeah, very much looking forward to it as always. Always great to have the show and discuss all things football. Yeah, a little bit of a shame about the other episode, but ultimately, we're going to get it right this time. So.
Yeah. Hopefully. Before we get into the book thing, I just want to make a quick announcement that for anyone who is unaware that I do my own YouTube channel. This year it's just called Javosh. I was made aware yesterday on Monday the 5th of July that a viewer that I had regularly watching my channels, a 14-year-old girl, unfortunately passed away at the weekend with alcohol poisoning. She got severely drunk on the Friday, was in hospital all Saturday and Sunday, and passed away on Monday morning. So for obviously thoughts and prayers go to her family and her friends, which is a very, very difficult time, a very, very sad time, and to raise awareness about alcohol and what it can do to you and the harm that it can do to you if you don't do it responsibly. I've got this wee short music clip from one of my favorite artists, Larry, to kind of just raise a bit of awareness about alcohol, since it's a very sensitive topic, especially at this sensitive time.
Can go a day without food, I can't go a day without you. When I try, I get the shakes till my face turns blue. Lost my job, wife, life for a bottle of booze. You promised you would make me happy, we know that's not true. I tried every drug in the book, but they never hit me the same. I told my doc that I'm down, he put some pills in my name. It doesn't matter the problem, the fix is always the same. Always taking the easy route like I'm never willing to change, damn. I'm blaming everybody but me. With you inside my system, everybody used to love me. But now my friends, family, my kids, they can't even trust me. Been losing all my control and I let you fucking become me no more. I said no fucking more. I know you think I'm lying, I said this to you before. This time I'm fucking ready, it's time to show you the door. This life is mine, it never was yours. I've been lying, I've been saying I'm fine, but I've been feeling low and I don't know why. Another night, I feel empty inside. I'm bottle of whatever I find. Feel the weight lift off me. Someone tell my mom I'm sorry. I don't wanna lie, I've been losing my mind. They tell me take a pill until I feel alright.
So yeah, just very much an awareness. You can find if you're interested in seeing the full music video, the links will be in the description for that. Have you got anything you want to add to that, George?
No, that's I didn't. It's incredibly shocking, and very very saddening to hear that, Josh. Obviously, I didn't know the viewer, but to die at such a young age is just terrible. And thoughts and prayers are with her family and friends.
All right, so on to what we will be talking about today, which is going to be we're going to start looking ahead to the pre-season. That the club obviously we have 3 more games off the Euros as we record this tonight. So pre-season is underway for all the clubs. I know Manchester United started pre-season yesterday. I know most Premier League clubs are on the preparations. Friendlies will be beginning from next week onwards. So first of all, George, let's obviously get started with Man United. A couple of things we need to dive into. Obviously, transfer business wise, you're actually looking like you're actually signing players this transfer window, which is unheard of for Manchester United under the Glazers. Jadon Sancho finally wrapped up after a long period of time. Varane, number 1 target for Man United, unlikely to stay at Real Madrid, and then you've got that young midfielder from Rennes. So with Sancho done and 2 others maybe coming in the window, how are you feeling about your transfer activity so far?
Well, it's difficult. The one thing that I'd always say is we have to wait until these deals are finalised, until they're sort of holding up the shirt, because we've been sort of burned before as United fans when deals that we thought were going to happen have not materialised, and that's been many summers where we've had disappointing transfer activity despite many rumours. Obviously, with Manchester United, the media do love to exaggerate and create stories just simply because of the amount of audience that obviously are going to be able to receive it. So we have to be very very careful. However, lots of distinguished and reputable sources are coming out and saying that we are close to these deals. Obviously, as you've spoken about Jadon Sancho, we should have got him last year, but it's good to get him in now. Obviously, the club have saved for themselves over 35 million pounds sterling. But again, it almost felt like Ahmad and Palestri were panic buys last year when we couldn't get Jadon Sancho over the line. But now they've got him. Obviously, we saw him in action again against Ukraine, where he was very very good. But yeah, very very pleased to get him done. And then obviously the other 2 sort of players that you've mentioned, and obviously he will solve our right wing position as well. And the other 2 players you've mentioned are going to be extremely important. I think Rafael Varane is a top centre back. He will offer the pace and composure and calmness that we definitely don't have with Victor Lindelof, in my opinion. And I think we'll be able to play a much higher line, and we'll be much more safe and secure at the back, especially as Varane is very strong as well, and he's not going to be easily bullied, which I think Lindelof is bullied pretty much every game he plays. So I would be very pleased to get Rafael Varane in. And obviously, the figure that's being talked about is about 50 million euros, which equates to about 43 million pounds, just under 43 million pounds. So again, that would be a very reasonable fee. Obviously, that's been established due to the fact that he's only got 1 year left in his contract. Obviously, Real don't really want to let him go for free if they can make some money in this pandemic. So yeah, I am hopeful. Obviously, it seems like there are advanced talks for Varane. And it's just whether we can get the deal over the line. I don't think Real Madrid can afford his wage demands. I think obviously we're one of the things that United are famous for is paying players quite large wages. So that's something that we've definitely got as a benefit. And I think also Varane has come out and said that he would prefer a new challenge. Obviously, he's been at Real Madrid for many, many years, as we know. In fact, I think 10 years now. And he obviously has won lots of different trophies, and he's looking for a new opportunity. So I would be very, very happy with him as a centre back, and I think it is necessary. And obviously the other player that you've mentioned, or obviously the young midfielder from Rennes, Eduardo Camavinga, he is a very exciting young prospect and talent. Obviously only 18 years old, but very highly regarded. Paul Pogba in particular has spoken glowingly about him today. Speaking about what an impressive footballer he is, and the fact that he reminds him a bit of him. Obviously, I'm a massive Paul Pogba fan anyway, as you probably know. So if he's anything of that ilk, then he's going to be an extremely good acquisition for us. My only slight concern, obviously, is with Camavinga is the fact that he is young, and obviously the fact that Ollie has tended to prefer more maturity in terms of his selections. The fact that we haven't seen much of Ahmad since he came in January, despite some stellar performances. When he has had the opportunities, and also very little use of the youth until the Wolves game at the back end of last season. So, again, his age would be a slight concern for me because, like I said, Ollie has shown that he does prefer that maturity in that side, and obviously he does have a fixation with McTominay and Fred in the pivot, which we'll probably see again next season. But again, like I said, and obviously his price again is extremely, extremely good. I think his is about 30 million euros, which is something like 23 million. I think 20, maybe slightly more than that pounds sterling. So obviously getting all those three for under 150 million sterling, which is probably about roughly what our budget is going to be, is very, very good. I think when we went into this summer, we knew that we only needed four. We probably needed four positions, which was right winger, which obviously Sancho has now fulfilled, centre back, which hopefully Varane will, CDM, which again there's differing schools of thought as to whether Eduardo Camavinga can be trained into it. I mean, obviously 18, you're definitely not their final product, and you definitely are malleable. So, like I said, I'm hoping that he can be. And then obviously the other position, which we probably might not get sorted out, but was definitely the fourth of the priorities, was backup right back. That remains to be seen whether we obviously get Brandon Williams. There was something trending on Twitter about Brandon Williams, but I haven't quite read it yet, so I don't know whether he's going out on loan, and whether we'll sort of use Diogo Dalot as the backup right back for Wan-Bissaka as the season moving forward. But what I would say is that Denzel Dumfries is available has a roughly a 13 million pound sterling release clause, and I think that he would be a very good buy for us. I think Dumfries for about 13 million. And even then you'd be still around about 150 million, and you would have filled all four positions. So that would be my tip if anyone from Manchester United's hierarchy is watching, as someone who's more reasonable. Then I think it was about 40 million euros. I think was slapped on Kieran Trippier, which he is 100. Even though he's been relatively okay at the Euros, he's definitely not worth that. So, yeah, that's my overarching thoughts so far on the transfer business. But we need to get these deals finalised and done.
Okay, well, I'm going to ask you this question. I need to just pop off and pick up some food quickly, so because man's got to eat. So obviously, Solskjaer hasn't won a trophy yet in his time. Okay, if these signings are to be finalised, he's just gonna wait. Okay, sorry about that. PA, that's why I'm sorry, we just interrupting you. as I was saying, so he hasn't won anything. He's clearly being backed by a good bit of money this season. Do you think that this is it? Solskjaer has to challenge for the title. He has to win a trophy. If it's even if it's just the FA Cup. I know you're a massive all out fan, but if you put that to your side and just look at this from from the outside, or look at this kind of from a neutral point of view, do you think with the years he's been there, with the fact that he's reached he's got to some semi-finals and lost the Europa League final to not a great Villarreal squad, do you think with the squad that he has now, he's been with his players for a good time? Most of those players have been there since he's been there. And he's also probably got the positions that he's needed: centre back, potentially a CDM, and the right winger. Do you think this is Solskjaer's all or nothing season?
So, with regards to that, I think that it should, obviously it's difficult to say. It's quite a multi-layered and multifaceted question that or answer it should be, because again, everyone's opinion is different, whether you obviously are a Manchester United fan or not. I think as a neutral, obviously, people would say that Ole Gunnar Solskjaer has been given enough time now to gel with the players to implement his tactics and strategy, and he is just lacking that final push in order to win a trophy. But for me, obviously, because I have high standards, I still hold, the club, the players, the management staff to the high standards which Sir Alex Ferguson set during, obviously, the majority of my life. So I obviously see, trophies as being an important, end game or result for a club as large as Manchester United is. A lot of fans are who are Ollie in are obviously willing to give him what it seems like infinite time in order to win something, and there have been a lot of theories spitballed about in respect of when because it's always extremely interesting to know when an Ollie in might turn to be an Ollie out, and everyone's got their different limit and everyone's got their own personal opinion, which again I can't influence, and again it's entirely their right to do so. But like I said, for me, he does have to win a trophy this season. He should have won a trophy already. Villarreal, an extremely easy proposition in that final, and really should no excuses. And I think it was almost deliberate that I think if a rival supporter had been managing Manchester United instead of Ole Gunnar Solskjaer, they couldn't have done a worse job in that respect. So you do have to wonder that even if he does get these players in, is his in-game management good enough in those crucial crunch times and moments? Because not taking off Rashford during that, in particular during that 120 minutes, was an absolute disgrace in my opinion. But ultimately, despite what myself as a fan, or even anyone who's watching who's also a Manchester United fan, or even a neutral fan, despite what we think, the only people, or the only people that Ole Gunnar Solskjaer really has to answer to in respect of what his ambitions are for next season are the Glazers, or obviously the board. And the board, as we know, are very much behind Ole Gunnar Solskjaer. And we also know, because of the sort of way that they have treated him, we also know that top four is sufficient for their, is his sort of only real objective with Manchester United. So, I can see a case of even during next season, if we don't win a trophy, or even the season after or the season after, I can definitely see that we will keep with Ole Gunnar Solskjaer as long as he secures top four, irregardless of whether he continues his barren run in terms of trophies. You will see more fans move to Ollie out, obviously, as the time ticks inexorably on. But I think there are also a lot of fanatics who will back Ole Gunnar Solskjaer, regardless, because of what he did as a player for us, not necessarily what his management's brought us. There's no denying, he has brought in some good players, but when you do bring in good players, what that then necessitates, or what indeed mandates, in my view, is that when you've got the best squad that we've had since Sir Alex, that then means that you've got a responsibility to bring to bear trophies, because ultimately, obviously, the playing staff the better they are, the more likelihood you've got of doing so. And at the moment, Ollie's been woefully negligent in that respect. And I don't see him. I don't see him. I hope I'm proven wrong, but I don't necessarily see him acquiring trophies. But like I said, the only people he's got to answer to are the board. I'll be quite happy to keep him having top 4, which is foolish in my view.
That's if I was here from books, I'll answer. That's a fair enough answer. What do you think? Given say you sign for Iran and this guy from Rance, right? So this is purely hypothetical, which is not the best question you ask, but where do you think this squad could finish under Solskjaer in a 4-2-3-1? Taking a guess, if he does stick with Fred and McTominay, and then Fran replaces Lindelof, Sancho's on the right, and Cavani and Greenwood rotating up front. Like, where do you think that squad could finish in the Premier League?
I would still say I still think the ceiling will be second again. It's one of those things, isn't it, where you have to do you judge, is it possible for a team, if you put in the 11, let's say whatever you feel are the 11 best players in the world, and you put all of them in a lineup, but then you gave them to Fred the Chippy to manage, how good could the players be without, if they weren't managed in a good fashion? Obviously that is slightly tongue-in-cheek because Ollie does have managerial experience, but comparatively to other managers in the league, I feel like he's lacking. His CV is definitely slightly more bare than other managers, even of clubs that are lower than ourselves. For example, obviously Rafa Benitez is now Everton manager, isn't he? And obviously he's won a Champions League as a manager. So when you're looking at those people, then obviously Ollie is slightly lower down than those. But I think it would be extremely interesting. It's very difficult to say, but it'd be extremely interesting. But I still feel like second would still be our ceiling, and the only reason for that would be if Ollie managed in a more attacking fashion and really tried to, in a cold and calculated manner, treated every single game almost like a cup final and attacked and really went for it, we could win the league with that squad. Because, obviously, it depends. Again, obviously, if Man City do get Grealish and Kane, as is mooted, even then, I still think Manchester United would still have a squad that should be at least challenging or going for that title. Even if you gave those two to Manchester City, I think a lot of the difference is the manager and the fact that obviously City can go on long, as we know from last season, and obviously when they were chasing Liverpool as well, a couple of seasons ago, we know that they can go on these massive long winning runs, and obviously it's very difficult to deal with them. So the only way that you can try and do that is try and match that and go on your own long winning runs. And obviously, unfortunately, with Ole Gunnar Solskjaer, his management of the squad and his rotation is not able to do that because far too often, especially last season, we saw it. He was playing incredibly negative, pragmatic football, which then resulted in draws, very damaging draws when we were, as we know, top of the league in January. So it was still, regardless of what you want to say, it was still ours to lose at that juncture within a 4-month span. And unfortunately, like I said, incredibly negative football playing McTominay and Fred as two CDMs against West Brom really sticks in the craw. And we obviously drew that match. That was just one example. So yeah, very, very difficult for me to say with Ole Gunnar Solskjaer, but I suspect second will be the ceiling. But like I said, the board will only care, and a lot of his Ollie in crowd will only care if he finishes in the top 4.
Do you not think that's just bad for Manchester United for the size of club you are, for the club that you are? Do you not think that's top 4? That's Spurs and Arsenal level. That's not Manchester United.
Well, I obviously think that, yeah. I mean, I've been agitating for Ollie to go for a long, long time now, since October of 2019, I think it was. And I didn't even want him to get the full-time job back in March of 2019. So it just, yeah, I mean, ultimately, the standards have dropped at Manchester United. A lot of fans are willing to accept that. They're willing to give Ollie time, but I'm not really able to do that. I also think that he's not held accountable correctly by a lot of fans, just because, like I said, because of how, obviously scoring that goal in '99, and obviously what he was, because he was a brilliant footballer, brilliant player for us. But that means that he's then given leeway, which wasn't given to, I don't believe anyway, it wasn't given to other managers that we've had, such as Moyes, Van Gaal, and Mourinho. So yeah, he's given a slightly easier ride, and he's almost he's making full use of it with regards to the club. And like I said, the only way that he will get sacked, in my view, is not, obviously you're suggesting that it might be to do with not receiving any trophies, not getting any trophies this season, or maybe even next season. I think the only way he's going to get sacked is if he doesn't get top 4.
I asked Reese yesterday on the Josh and Reese podcast on my channel, but I asked him the same question I've just asked you there. He said if Solskjaer is not fighting for the league by Christmas, somehow gets knocked out of the Champions League or go into the Europa League again, he should be sacked on the spot by Christmas. Would you agree with that?
Well, I would agree with it, only because ultimately I'd be sacking him right now. Like literally this second, I'd be phoning up and getting rid of him. So obviously, as like I said, I've now wanted him sacked for almost 2 years. So any time's a good time. I would love to be proved wrong on Ole Gunnar Solskjaer, because very rarely am I proved wrong in footballing terms. And with Ole Gunnar Solskjaer, obviously this season, I feel like there was such a debate, wasn't there, with Ole, with regards with Ole in and Ole out. And when he obviously went to the top of the league in January, a lot of the Ole ins were sort of reveling in it and sort of saying that the Ole outs had got it completely wrong. But by the end of the season, what are we left with? 0 trophies and a terrible management in key matches throughout the season. Obviously, again, I don't want to, because again, this podcast could last for hours if I did, but obviously the matches against PSG and Leipzig, the way that we got knocked out in the Champions League last season in the group stages, the quarter-final against Leicester in the FA Cup, the final obviously against Villarreal, which again we've spoken about ad nauseum. All of these sort of big crucial matches, Ole Gunnar Solskjaer has made terrible decisions which have cost Manchester United. And like I've always said, I think, again, probably people might be getting bored of me saying this about Ole Gunnar Solskjaer, but it's sort of my summation on him, is that he never learns his lessons. It would be fine if he was, obviously, because again, well, maybe not, actually probably not in my opinion, but you could probably give him some more time if he was, as a sort of student, everyone sort of thinks about him learning on the job. I think a lot of Ole-ins would say that as well. But it'd be fine if he was learning his lessons. But it's the same things over and over every single match. Obviously, how many? There's 5 semi-finals, isn't it? That he's lost.
Something like that, yeah.
So the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different result. And that's ultimately, I'm not necessarily calling Ollie insane, but I think he's just very, very. He's either. Basically, the only way that you could say is he's either very stupid or he's very arrogant.
Well,
I want doing the same thing and expecting results.
I'm going to show you something here for in share screen. Your discretion is advised for this absolutely terrible thing I'm about to put on screen. All right, so David De Gea, Lindelof, Maguire, and Jones at the back. Wan-Bissaka, Fred, Andres Pereira, and Brandon Williams. And then James, Martial, and Rashford with the bench of Lee Grant and CAB, James Garner, Ashley Young, Juan Mata, Jesse Lingard, and Ethan Greenwood. Yes, Solskjaer, yes, you may not be a big fan of Solskjaer, but he's done a really good job at rebuilding the squad that used to be less. Like Fred and Andres Pereira in the midfield.
That's one of the only things. Like I said, that's probably the only thing, and I've been quite consistent about this. That one, probably the only redeeming factor about Ole Gunnar Solskjaer has been the way that he's obviously manoeuvred out what we might term as deadwood, got rid of a lot of the chaff from the squad. Some terrible players there. Obviously, some of them are still here. They shouldn't be. So Phil Jones is still here. I think. Again, I did read something that, and again, you have to be, be very careful. But I did read something that did say that Ollie was quite disgusted that they gave Phil Jones a new contract, which was pretty much almost instantaneously after he came in. And obviously Phil Jones, as we know, hasn't played since January 2019. So for the last almost, what is that, 15, 16 months, he's been getting a massive wage, probably about 100 grand a week, doing absolutely nothing. So he needs to be go as well. We're still trying to get rid of, obviously, Andreas Pereira. I think he's still at the club. I think I've sort of blocked him out of my head, but I think he was only on loan. I think he's now coming back as well. So I think, again, it feels like I've sort of tried to put him to the back of my mind because he was absolutely terrible, and a key reason why we made the worst start in Premier League history. Obviously, when Ollie, on Ollie's first full season, when we were terrible before Bruno came in, that was principally due to the fact that obviously you're playing the McTominay Fred pivot, but also that Andreas Pereira was number 10 and he was diabolical. But again, he's still coming back. We've still got to get permanently rid of him. Obviously, Brandon Williams, debatable whether he's going to be good enough or not. Again, he's got he's played very few minutes under Ole Gunnar Solskjaer this season. Instead, he preferred to play Aaron Wan-Bissaka absolutely every minute, which again is, one of Ollie's main failings is the fact that he will never rotate and he burns players out, which is, again, I think even the most staunch Ollie in would agree with me there. And obviously Dan James, can't seem to get rid of him. I don't think he's good enough either. A very likeable, nice guy, and obviously for Wales he's good, but I don't think he's Manchester United level by any means. And obviously then again, you look at the bench, as you sort of alluded to. I think we've obviously given Lee Grant another deal. He's done absolutely nothing for Manchester United. Tuan Sabi was very unlucky because he got limited opportunities last season. Again, had a stellar performance against PSG, pocketing both Mbappe and Neymar in that first game in Paris. But then we didn't really see him after that. Instead, we saw Ollie's stepson Lindelof and Harry Maguire every match. Again, lack of rotation. Obviously, Garner went out on loan to Nottingham Forest. Not sure I can't remember off the top of my head where he's now planning to go for it or what's planning with him for the next season. Probably another loan deal, knowing this club. Ashley Young, I think he actually forced the move. I think we were actually trying to give him an extended contract. I think he forced the move to Inter Milan, so we were quite lucky there because of
back at Watford in the Premier League.
Yeah, sorry, he's back at Watford now, isn't he? Yeah, but obviously he went to sort of leaving Ole Gunnar Solskjaer. He went to Inter Milan, won the league, obviously stopped the Juventus dominance. One of the key reasons as well, wasn't he? We think he was very good for Inter Milan. Juan Mata, as you know, we've given him another contract for no reason because he really didn't play a lot during the last season. Lingard, no idea what's happening with him. Whether I think the rumours are that he wants to stay, and no doubt he will. And obviously Mason Greenwood, speaks incredible talent. Hopeful that he can become anything he wants to be. He's sensational, really. He can be absolutely world class, like universe class. He's that good. But like I said, obviously, if you look at that, yes, he has done a good job in terms of what we brought in terms of players. But actually, a lot of those players are still knocking around. And that's not necessarily anything to do with Ole Gunnar Solskjaer. That's more to do with the board and how slow and unable we are to shift players who we've given large contracts to, because that's obviously the problem. Is the issue is the wages, and players who like to remain at Manchester United just collecting a big paycheck because they can't get those wages elsewhere. And if you think about it from your own point of view, if you were a player, would you take a pay cut, or in any job, would you go to another job which has a massive lowering in salary if you could do a nice cushy job doing nothing at Manchester United? So yeah, it's difficult, but I think we are getting there. But like I sort of mentioned in an answer to another question that we've had already today, is that the better the squad, the more players there are. And obviously Zlatan mentioned this as well. He felt that there's a better team now than there was when he was playing for us a few years ago. But obviously, when Zlatan played for us, we still won some trophies.
See when you talk about people getting a nice wage for doing absolutely nothing at Manchester United. Do you think this deal also screams that? Because this was just so random.
Yeah.
Can you tell me why have you got four? No club has four senior goalkeepers. All right, you have two senior goalkeepers and a youth goalkeeper, or three senior youth keepers. But you've got David De Gea, Dean Henderson, Tom Heaton, and now Lee Grant all on the wage bill. He's not going to play a single game of football, or not even be on the bench for Manchester United this season. Why have you given him a contract extension? Does that mean De Gea or Henderson's going and he's the third choice, or is he simply there just to be nice in the dressing room?
Probably the latter, but I think, and the main reason for that is, again, like we've spoken about, is that United have given large contracts. So both Henderson and De Gea are extremely difficult to get rid of. Because David De Gea, I think, is the best. I don't know if he still is or not, but I believe that he is the best paid goalkeeper in the world. I think he's on something along the lines of like 375 grand a week, I believe, somewhere in that region.
Something like that.
So he is, again, and I think he's a shadow of his former self. I know a lot of people still see him as United's number one, but he's definitely not the De Gea of a few years ago when he was, peerless. He was the best keeper in the world for a few years, but definitely not that level now. But so we can't really get rid of him because no club that is capable of affording those wages, or at least close to them, needs a keeper this summer. So we can't really get rid of De Gea. And obviously Dean Henderson is now seen as the sort of future prospect, the sort of new kid on the block, capable of filling in for David De Gea. And again, he's on relatively large wages, and we don't want to get rid of him because obviously there is going to be a point with David De Gea where he becomes, older and older, and it's whether he can sort of sustain any longevity. And I think he's more seen as the number one. So I would say at best, best case scenario in many ways, or it depends how you look at it, but I think the likely scenarios are either that one of David De Gea or Dean Henderson, I think it will be De Gea, will go on loan to another club. And at that juncture, what will probably happen, because I think it will probably be David De Gea, is that Manchester United will have to pay at least half his wages because whichever club takes him, won't be able to afford them. Or obviously all four will stay here. And in training, there's going to be lots of goalkeepers for the other players to shoot at. It makes absolutely no sense. I think they are preparing, obviously, the way with obviously the Heaton signing. They are preparing the way for one of them to go, but it remains to be seen. And my guess is as good as yours, really. In that way.
What did you make of Tom Heaton's comments? I'm coming in to chat. I'm coming in for the number one jersey.
Well, it's always nice to have that sort of confidence, isn't it, that you're going to be able to do so. But I don't think, with the best will in the world, unless heaven forbid, obviously an injury happened to one of the other keepers or both of them, I don't think he would get he wouldn't see. I don't think he'll see much time, unless, obviously, like I said, unless De Gea, as is rumoured, will go out on loan, in which case he will see some cup games, won't he? Because at least Ollie has shown that he will rotate. He won't rotate any outfield players, but he'll definitely rotate the keepers a lot, as we saw last season between Henderson and De Gea.
Right, so moving on to we're going to move on now to another club that I want to ask you about. Spurs hiring the Spirit over the Santo. Now, I'm going to ask you this in a very straightforward way. All right, was this desperate? Was Nuno the 9th, 10th? Like, we know this spoke to a lot of clubs. All right, we know that. There's no doubt that we already know that. Do you think that this is just desperation from Spurs that had before preseason was starting to be was beginning, actually was started today? They just needed a manager, and for the PR reasons, to have a coach to work on some sort of transfers to try and convince Harkin. Do you think this was just desperation, and Nuno is probably just very lucky to be in the situation that he is just to be given this job?
I don't necessarily think that he's lucky in terms of, I think he was always looking for a step up. I think a lot of people would see him as a good manager. I think he was a good manager for Wolves. He certainly did a good job there in my book. So he was definitely, because Wolves, as we know, I think, even prior to last season, at least they were sort of challenging for that, top 6 sort of places. So he did do an exemplary job with Wolves. I think, obviously the really, really, whenever he faced Wolves, it always seemed like it was a battle, and they always had, real technical ability and skill. And he was a major part of how well Wolves did. So there was always going to be a place, or at least I always felt like there was a club that was going to be a step up for Nuno, which I felt like he deserved. And there aren't too many clubs who have had such high positionings regularly, such as Wolves in the Premier League. So there weren't too many steps up that you could see Nuno having. But in terms of obviously the Spurs job, yes, he's lucky to get that one, specifically because, as we know, they talk to absolutely everyone in order to get a manager. And in particular, I think they're for me the best manager they could have got was obviously Antonio Conte. But obviously that I think that fell apart on with regards to demands, because I think Antonio Conte is, as we know, is a winner, and I think he was probably demanding a bit too much. So communications obviously broke down with him, and obviously with other potential managers. So obviously Nuno is fortunate to be with Spurs, but I think that might be quite a good fit. Because, like I said, I think he did a good job at Wolves, and I think he does deserve an opportunity at a bigger club. And ultimately, as we know, with Jose Mourinho, at least, it's the only time that Mourinho's left a club without winning a trophy, because he was stopped, obviously, a week prior to the League Cup he could have won. So they're obviously trying a different option. But with Spurs, I think obviously they spent all that money on the new stadium, but I think their place at the top table, I almost feel like the big six are almost becoming a big four now, which is obviously United, Chelsea, City and Liverpool. And I feel like Spurs and Arsenal are a lot further back, for different reasons. And I think if Spurs had got Conte or a proven winner, I think that might have been enough to propel them back into that conversation. But with Nuno, I can almost see them being also Rans again, because I feel like, at least with Mourinho, they could have stop the trophy drought by winning a League Cup. And it's important, that first trophy, as obviously anyone will tell you from a club that wins trophies regularly, that first trophy is incredibly important. And it's at the moment it's just this massive stumbling block for Spurs, and that's why players like Harry Kane want to leave. And obviously now he's going to have an even greater reason to, because with Nuno you aren't really guaranteed trophies, whereas I feel like with Conte, he's almost one of those managers that you are almost guaranteed it. So very interesting to see what will happen with Nuno.
Just on like you lead me on to my next question very nicely. Do you think? Yes, obviously Nuno comes into this job with a bit of pressure, but do you think? You're obviously Spurs are in the European Conference League, barring they get for qualification, which you really, really, really like to think Spurs would do. Do you think this is a competition that he has to win? Like, you look at the teams that are in this competition, you just look at, all right. Like, it says a lot of Northern Ireland, like actually teams where I live have a chance of going through to the group stages. That speaks about the level of competition that's in this. Like, Spurs are maybe I think there's maybe a Spanish team and an Italian team go through, but even then they're not particularly great teams. Do you think it'll be an embarrassment and probably maybe even will cost his job one season in if he does not win the European Conference League, which is like the easiest competition to probably win?
I think it will cost him his job. Yeah, I think if you're not going to give Mourinho time, you're not going to give him enough time to win a trophy. I think if he doesn't do well in that, or obviously well in the league, I think Spurs have now shown with the Mourinho thing that they're ruthless enough that.
Well, Pochettino was sacked. Think about when Pochettino was sacked too. Yeah. He was sacked at a very interesting time too. So, from an external point of view, you felt like, I don't know about you, but I felt from a personal point of view, and like I said, I've got no affiliations to Spurs whatsoever, or no wish either way on them, because I think they're one of those sort of inoffensive clubs because they haven't won a trophy for so long. You don't really sort of worry about them. But from an outside perspective, I felt like they should have probably given Mourinho at least another week to try and win that league. Bringing Ryan Mason was a very interesting appointment. To beat Pep Guardiola. So for me, that speaks volumes about the Spurs hierarchy. In that it's almost like they all cut off their nose to spite their face. I felt like a better, more calculated and logical approach would have been to give him the extra week, because what harm could it have done? And if anything, it probably I feel like Mourinho could have beaten Pep in that final. Because obviously he is one of only two managers now, as we know. It was only one manager at that juncture, but he was one of only two managers who has ever beaten Pep Guardiola in a final. Obviously, as you all know, Thomas Tuchel also added his name to that list in the Champions League final. So just very quickly, I know what do you call it? I know this video comes out after the things, but just to say about Spain, that Morata has been dropped. Finally for Spain. What, from the entire squad? No, he's on the bench. He's on the bench. He looks like he's not playing a recognised striker, but it looks like I can't say anything about Arcelorable from Real Salzburg. Yeah. from what we're all to that, he's going to be up front, and then Olmo is going to be on the left. Eric Garcia is a centre back again, which may be a bad decision against the Italians for a guy he's barely played all season. But anyway, I just would like to know that because I know you're not being a big fan of Morata, but he's finally being benched. Just took him to the.
To be honest with you, again, we're not going to get too much into Euro chat, but I actually disagree with that.
Disagree? I thought you'd want Morata on the. I thought you think Morata.
I think, and a bit in the same way as like keeping Callum Phillips and Declan Rice, even though they can only pass sideways and backwards. I think that it's important that you maintain that stability at this juncture of a tournament. I think he should have, if he wanted to drop Morata, he should have done it a couple of rounds ago. I think it's a poor decision to drop him now because it means the players have all got to learn a different format. Obviously, with Morata, you've got an archetypal centre forward, whereas with Oyarzabal, he's not necessarily that same sort of target man. He's not able to link the play. I think Morata, although he's, as we know, terrible at finishing overall, I think he's an important link player. And so it's going to be extremely interesting. But again, I've got my own. We're not going to get into predictions, but yeah. So that's just my thoughts on it. But
and obviously, Eric Garcia coming in for Pau Torres. Eric Garcia kind of struggled against Croatia, so that might come back. And the only change for Italy is that Emerson comes in for obviously the injured Spencer Hall. So, back to what I was saying. I want to ask you about another club, Crystal Palace, Harren and Vieira. Are they relegation contenders for that alone?
It's going to be extremely interesting because I quite like Patrick Vieira. I think he's quite, I think I respect him because obviously he's as a player he's a proven winner, isn't he? He's won almost everything that there is to win as a player, and I feel like he's quite a clever and considered person. But I think it's a surprising. It's very surprising that Crystal Palace would pick him. I was very shocked when I saw that news, not only because of, he's not necessarily a recognised manager or someone you would associate with Crystal Palace, but also because I believe that I had believed from Twitter rumours and other things that Vieira was supposed to be forming a group with Daniel Ek or whatever his name is from Spotify in order to take over Arsenal. So I think, for Arsenal fans, it's quite disappointing news because that's one of their key components of their proposed takeover going to Crystal Palace. So like I said, I was extremely shocked to see it. And yeah, but that's fascinating, really. It's one of those things. It's one of those appointments where you're going to look out for Crystal Palace now over the next season and really sort of see how it goes. But I think with Palace, if he doesn't do well, I think, the pressure is such that if he is sort of, close to relegation, after a few months, he'll be sacked in a way. So, yeah, but I thought I'd just want to bring that in there as well about the takeover, because like I said, it's quite funny because it looks like the takeover isn't happening now.
I think it's Crystal Palace don't even have a squad. You think about all their players that are out of contract and then they haven't signed anyone. So like, what is their squad? They don't have one. The guys could be working with bread and sticks in training. So my final question here, this is a bit of an interesting one. But do you think next season is going to be really, really competitive? Liverpool will have Van Dijk back. Maybe we'll be back to their competitive ways. Though Man and Salah could be away during Africa Cup of Nations if I was ahead. City if they get Harry Kane and Jack Grealish. Chelsea if they sign a striker. Manchester United, that's what I spoke about. Do you think next season will be really, really competitive, or do you think if City get Harry Kane and Jack Grealish, that's the league done and dusted straight away?
It's difficult to say. I actually feel like if you were to get Erling Haaland, obviously, hopefully it doesn't happen because we've earmarked him for next summer. But if you were to get Erling Haaland, I feel like Chelsea will be the greatest threat to Manchester City. I feel like it will be a 2-horse race for maybe not quite as close as it was a couple of seasons ago, obviously between City and Liverpool. Was it now 3 seasons ago? Actually, was it?
3 seasons ago,
yeah. When they were sort of went neck and neck almost to the last day. I don't feel like it might be that close, but I feel like it will be within. How many points were we behind Man City then? About 13 or something along those lines.
Yeah.
I feel like there will be single digits between the winner and the second place, and then maybe quite a bit more between them and, or at least those two. Those two will be quite far ahead, if that makes sense. And I feel like the other ones will be further back. It's whether Manchester United, if we do get these signings, we can be in that top two, providing we sack Ole Gunnar. Providing Ole Gunnar Solskjaer can get the most out of his team. But I feel like there will be two teams who will be within that top two. One of them will be Man City. Whether they'll be second or first, we'll have to see. But one of the two will be Man City, and the other one will be one of Chelsea, Liverpool, or Man United.
That's fair enough. And then I want to ask you a quick question about. I want to ask you a very quick question, just while it's on top of my head. This is going outside of the Premier League. So we're going into a conference zone that you mean, particularly not like just see the Champions League. The Champions League. So you're talking about big European teams. So you've got Dortmund under Marco Reus. You've got Juventus back under Allegri. You've got Lazio under Maurizio Sarri. Lazio looking to strengthen quite well in Serie A this year. Obviously, Inter Milan don't have Antonio Conte. They've got who was the Lazio manager. Do you think the Champions League next year will be an interesting one with so many unproven managers? Kind of had these big, except for Allegri, but there's a lot of managers at these clubs who you wouldn't necessarily associate with these big clubs. Do you think the Champions League next season will be up in the air for a few teams?
I feel like the favourites will still be Bayern Munich. It's just whether they can keep Robert Lewandowski injury free, because as we know, obviously, with the best respects in the world, I think that was the main reason why they didn't, with Choupo-Moting, whatever his name is, up front, despite the fact he scored a couple of goals, he should have scored about 5 more against PSG. So I feel like Bayern Munich will definitely be favourites in my book in a way, because I feel like they've got the best team.
Nagelsmann's going to be the manager, isn't he? If I'm right in saying.
Yeah, but I still feel like, obviously, I think Nagelsmann's quite a good manager. I still feel like Bayern Munich as an overall team are my favourites. Obviously, Man City will be up there again. Obviously, Pep Guardiola will be looking to overturn it. Chelsea have got to be up there, obviously the reigning champions, but it's going to be, it is difficult, as we know from Bayern Munich. It's difficult to retain the Champions League unless you've got the greatest of all time in your up front, which is Cristiano Ronaldo, who was the main reason why Real were able to do it for that many years. But Chelsea will still be up there, obviously, if they get Erling Haaland. But even if they don't, we've seen that Tuchel's such a master tactician. We've also seen, obviously, as you all know, he's obviously 2 finals in a row, wasn't it? One with PSG and obviously with Chelsea as well. So we know that he'll definitely be a favourite, obviously, with Chelsea. And obviously Manchester United will probably be out in the group stages, thanks to Ole Gunnar Solskjaer. But no, we should be challenging as well. If we get the players we're supposed to get, obviously Camavinga and Varane, and obviously with Sancho already there, we should be challenging for that Champions League as well. There's absolutely no reason not to. So I think all 4 English teams will have a good opportunity to do it. Obviously Liverpool, City, Chelsea, and United. Spanish-wise, I don't feel like any of the Spanish teams will be close to it.
Barcelona are better to have a squad by the end of the season, by the looks of it. So,
I always knew, by the way, when Messi was rumoured about leaving last season, I always knew he was going to stay. Eventually,
I think everyone does. Yeah,
I think he's just one of those players that sort of cries for the sake of it, throws his toys out of the pram, and then stays where he is. But I don't think any Spanish team will be anywhere close to it. I feel like that league's very stagnant now, and I think it's not necessarily competitive. Might be proven wrong, obviously, next season. But I don't feel like a Spanish team will win it. Obviously, like I said, Bayern Munich, and then of course the final team. So I think obviously maybe I've been slightly generous putting United in there, but I'm a United supporter. But I think those 4 English teams, Bayern Munich obviously from Germany, and obviously Paris Saint-Germain are the other team. Who have been doing some Sterling, as we know, summer signing business. Obviously, Ashraf Hakimi, who you were linked to, I think he's now been reported as now a PSG player. Ramos, I think, is obviously going there as well, isn't he? And he's an incredible leader, and I think he'll bring some Champions League winnings experience to the talents already of Mbappe, Neymar, Verratti. There's also slightly more disappointingly for me. And hopefully they're again, the rumours will be quashed and Pogba will sign a new contract, but there's also rumours about Paul Pogba. if PSG got Paul Pogba, I think they become favourites. That's how high I rate Paul Pogba, but hopefully they don't. But irregardless, PSG will definitely be up there. So I think I'd be shocked if it's not one of those 6 teams. Obviously, you've mentioned the Italian teams. I don't feel like any of them will be close to it. Because again, my answer might change on this, by the way, depending on what the transfer business is for those clubs. But I don't feel like Italian clubs can compete anymore either. You'd have to say, obviously, Juventus would be the one club that you would think maybe because of Allegri. And obviously, you did get them to a couple of finals. But yeah, like I said, I'd be very shocked at this juncture, precisely why you've just asked me the question. I'd be shocked if it wasn't one of those 6 teams that I've alluded to who win the Champions League next season.
Fair enough. So I think that ends the show on a nice note. I can actually talk about our well, not predictions, but our previews of Manchester United and what's coming up. Is that when it comes to this Thursday, when we have Ben on, we'll be talking about Chelsea and Manchester City. I'll give you your stage for Manchester next. I know you like to go into detail about it. So Chelsea and Man City previews will be coming up on Thursday or Friday when the show comes out. So another really, really good episode. This video will be uploaded. I'm going to literally schedule it for tomorrow before at least being kicked off, just to double check. But another really good show, George. I enjoyed that.
Yes, again, a very good show, like you've spoken about. Obviously, nice to talk about Manchester United because I do like to go into depth on them as you've spoken about, but also good to go in on a few other teams as well and talk about their opportunities and what they've done quite recently. So yeah, very much enjoyed the show, Josh, and thank you very much to the Blue Podcast for having me as always on the Golden Show.
Thank you everyone for watching the show. Make sure to hit the like button, subscribe. Let us know what you think about Manchester United, Crystal Palace, Spurs, Juventus, whatever you may be. Let us know in the comments, but we'll absolutely read them and give you a reply on what we think. As I said, we will be back later in the week with Ben from the Purple Show and the Blue Show joining us as we finally actually get a guest from someone else on the Blue Podcast on the show. About time, they're all very lazy over there compared to us. But thank you so much, guys, for watching. Enjoy the rest of enjoy the next couple of days. And we'll see you again on Friday. See you later.
Thanks very much, guys.
Why do you let us hurt one another just for the dollar? Did you lose your heart in the darkness deep in your pocket? No, I don't care of the price I pay. I don't want to spend my life that way. Tell me, is the pain that you're causing worth what you profit?
Yeah, I know that money don't buy happiness, but buys you more material shit. Been reworking how I think and what it means to be rich. I used to think it meant to flex, so Rolex on my wrist. Feels bad to take more than you give. Lately hate how we live. I never wanna become the things that I hate. With a man in the mirror with laughing spit in my face and tell me that the money is maybe another fake. I've been drowning in my mind and my money's been at it. Wait, oh Lord, please save me. I should've known that something man-made couldn't make me. I say I'm making music, or is music what creates me? I never have an answer, same question every day. See, when we pass on, all our things are passed on to the next. Everything we didn't do is everything we regret. Every day we fucking work for this worthless check. If you're not happy, you're forever in debt. You're forever in debt.